When I was a kid, I think, for the most part, any scary things that I read, they were part of mystery stories, because everything I read was a mystery, whether it was The Boxcar Children, or Nancy Drew, or the Babysitter's Club mystery books, which actually were pretty good. They were better than the regular series, I think. I've never really been much for horror things. There's a lot of things that I don't agree with in them. However, I have read a lot of classics, and, well, some of them are scary. I ransacked my bookshelves for you, and I pulled off a bunch of things that I thought, deserved at least an honorable mention, and that includes a lot of Poe stories, and, I didn't actually think this was that scary. I need to reread it. I got some crazy book covers, because I get a lot of these things from used book sales, but, even though all these things are famous horror or spooky classics, they didn't really get me. I've got one Stephen King book, which was scary for 2/3, but in a real life scary. Real life scary is sometimes more effective. I always thought that this cover was really scary. I mean, look at the moon there. And so I just wanted to show these, and just to clarify what the competition was. Runners up. First of all, The Dollhouse Murders by Betty Wren Wright. There's a murder, and it happened years and years ago, and this girl and her mentally retarded little sister go to live with her aunt, and the aunt's kind of cranky, and there's this dollhouse, and the girl starts seeing the little people in the dollhouse in odd positions, and she starts asking questions, and the aunt gets really mad, and it was spooky, because the dolls were moving by themselves. It was a book that drove me crazy, because the characters were really annoying, and yet I enjoyed the story, and so I kept on reading it. I don't know. Another runner-up is The Egypt Game, which I haven't read for a long time, so I don't exactly remember what it is about it that's scary. I know it was kind of suspenseful, because that's what it says on the back. Frankenstein? Okay, I did not read this copy for a very good reason. Obvious reason. And by the time I read Frankenstein, I had already seen at least one movie, and so I had expectations, and, well, it was frightening, because you get to a certain point and you're just like, I have no idea what to expect now. We've entered territory that I'm not familiar with. And, I found the moral commentary and the humanity thing, I found that so interesting that it made it less frightening. But there were things that made me feel kind of queasy. And, well, that's a whole other list. I read Jurassic Park earlier this year. That was frightening and made me queasy. I also read Who Goes There, which is the original story that The Thing from Another World and The Thing are based on, and that was also gross and intense, just really suspenseful and disturbing. I don't really do aliens. I must also add The Collector by John Fowles, which I read earlier this year when I was going through a kick of kidnapping stories. The Collector is about a young man who gets a little bit of money from the lottery, and he buys a house, and he stalks a girl that he likes, and he kidnaps her, and he keeps her locked up in the basement, and it was one of the most frustrating, enraging, disturbing books I've ever read. And this is the countdown part. The third scariest book that I ever read was Dracula. Part of it is this cover. I've probably read it 3 times now, and it's not so much that I'm afraid of vampires or bats or wolves or anything lurking outside my room. I think a lot of it comes from the seductive invasiveness of the Count, and the way everything happens slowly and gradually and just pulls you in. The part that disturbed me the most was when he comes to Mina and he, like, uses his fingernail to slice his skin open in the blood, and That was just nasty. Second scariest book I ever read was The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells, and that book gave me nightmares. I don't think Dracula did, but Dr. Moreau, it was all about the puma. The part where Dr. Moreau is changing the puma into a woman, and the narrator is hearing this screaming in the other room, and it's this unearthly scream, and then I believe the half puma, half woman breaks free and comes tearing out of the room, and that scene just terrified me, and the other stuff, all the weird stuff going on, and then the way it ends is just creepy. But hands down, the most terrifying book that I ever read was The House on Hackman's Hill. This book, oh, it gave me problems. So, these two kids, brother and sister, they go and talk to this old man, and he tells them this story about when he was a kid, and he and his mother worked for Dr. Hackman in the house on Hackman's Hill. And he was an Egyptologist, and he had all these Egyptian artifacts, and something mysterious happened in the past. The guy comes to the end of the story, and then the kids are just like, we're gonna go, we want to go check it out. The whole second half of the book is them walking around in the house and realizing that they've gotten snowed in, and things happen. This was at a time when we were doing a study on ancient Egypt and the gods and the goddesses in 4th grade, and so I was really enjoying it. But, it just was so fresh, and I think The Mummy also came out around that time, and I didn't realize that movie was a comedy horror. I just thought it was horror. I had nightmares about that movie, and it was all wrapped up with this, and it's just, I think about it now and I still get the willies. And, I've read monster books and psychologically scary books and nuclear holocaust books, and it's still the stupid Egyptian mummies in the basement and eyes and Anubis in the stairway, and it's creepy. If there's anyone out there who has read The House on Hackman's Hill, do tell me if it was as scary for you as it was for me, because I've always wondered if it was just me.